All right, guys, just about at 7 o'clock. Welcome. Pretty good showing for the first Monday in March. Um, Obviously, we'll admit people as they arrive. Everybody knows me. I'm Peter, president here at BBRC. Couple quick announcements. It is obviously real baseball will be returning regular season later this month, so we're all excited. Um, March is also the return of our Sunday night Baltimore Baseball Babble, which is always the last Sunday of the month at 7 p.m. I'm not sure if I will be hosting or one of my colleagues, but that does come back this month. And for those of you who are in the Baltimore, Maryland metro region, our game at Camden Yards is set for May 23rd. It's a Saturday. It's against the Detroit Tigers, and it's also Sam Basayo Bobblehead Day. So look for more information on that. Tickets are in the lower deck down the first base right field side. Just have to put together the menu for the pregame party. And anybody who wants to contribute to the Baltimore Chop, the spring issue will be coming out in April. So you have a deadline getting articles into Ruth of March 31st. So I put a link in the chat about Liz's endeavors. And she's been doing this for a couple years now. And I know she has, I believe she has done this presentation for SABR National, or at least one of the committees.
It's a little different than the last one. I've kind of shifted my research a little since then.
Okay. Well, she has control of the board here. And so I will sit back and let her run the show. She will share her screen. Please stay on mute. If you have any questions, save till the end or put them in the chat, and Liz will get to them. Thank you very much, guys. See you at the end of the presentation.
Thank you. Let's get this open. Everyone seeing it? It's good?
We're good.
Sorry, my thing just like clicked out on me. Love it when that happens.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Okay.
There you go.
So, get back to the front. So, if you don't know, I'm Liz. And what I have for you tonight, I've now titled Old Habits Die Screaming, Preserving the Art and Joy of Keeping Score. So, just a bit about me. I was born and raised in Maryland. But I was raised in a split household, so I'm both an Orioles and a Cubs fan. And I graduated from Bradley University out in Illinois in 2014 with my degree in public relations. My professional experience so far in baseball in 2015, right out of college, I was a member of the Orioles event staff. I sometimes ushering, mostly at the gate. And then the following year, I was selected to be a part of their career introductory program. We were called base runners. It was akin to an internship. And we ran kids corner and did whatever ever needed of us on a game day. In 2018, I worked at the Masson Studios in the pre and post game shows for both the Orioles and the Nationals when the teams were on the road. And then in 2024, I printed my scorebook for myself. And once I posted it online, people wanted it. But it hadn't, my tweaking never stopped. And so last year, I actually launched my business, Diamond Scorecard Designs. And then this year, I just signed on with MLB as a game day monitor. I basically make sure that the game day streams, TV and radio broadcast streams are working. So with keeping score, you got to start at the beginning. And while not quite at the beginning, in 1979, Thomas Boswell wrote, "The most useful tool in our creative spectating as we dissect the game, then reassemble it in a better understood whole, is the modest scorecard, baseball's unique skeleton key." And this is the skeleton key dates back to the mid 1800s, the scorecards being pretty much as old as organized baseball. One of the earliest known scorecards coming from a game played on October 6, 1845. And the first known newspaper box score showed up later that month, clearly in an age where information was not instantaneous. Though the earliest of these scorecards were relatively simple, mostly just tracking outs and runs, maybe individual statistics, but nothing that gave you essence of gameplay. It was in 1863 when Henry Chadwick, the father of baseball, published his first box score in box scoring system. And it was generally adopted by organized baseball, but his system still wasn't the only one. And as early as 1869, Chadwick voiced concerns that there was too much variation, saying that some systems didn't produce the right data. Though in an 1872 DeWitt's Baseball Guide, Chadwick wrote, quote, "There have been several forms of scorebooks published of late years, but only one has been found to answer the purpose of recording the details of a game sufficiently to arrive at a correct estimate of each man's play." And that one is Chadwick's copyright scorebook. So he kind of lose some points there trying to make himself the answer. Give you an idea of what they look like. This one comes a little bit later from 1894. This is from a scheduled publication for the Southern Association and National League. And every game in this schedule had a page like this. It just has space for the lineups and their individual numbers and runs by inning. So it doesn't tell you much of what happened in the game. This next one comes from an 1867 Baseball Player's Book of Reference, written by Chadwick. This is the earliest publication that I've been able to find so far. My research pretty much limited to the internet at this point, but a lot of these publications, and there were dozens of them, were released on a yearly basis. As for his system, it uses blank boxes, but he uses a combination of numbers and letters and some symbols, though the instructions included in this guide have a lot more symbols than are used on the example card that they have. But not much of Chadwick's system is still used today. Pretty much the lone exception being the letter K for strikeout, which was of his invention. If you notice on the right-hand side, the fielders are listed in their batting order because Chadwick didn't number players by position, but rather their batting order. One of these squares says 8-2, and while center field to catcher sounds incredible, in this particular case, it's referencing a shortstop to a second baseman play. This next one is from an 1872 DeWitt's Baseball Guide, also attributed to Chadwick. Again, still blank boxes for each at-bat, but it expands on the various pieces of information and stats that it records, including expanding what the fielder's stats being recorded on this side. But in terms of instructions, actually, they're pretty similar to the 1867 guide. So this next one comes from an 1891 publication from London. So it was a British baseball guide written by a man named Newton Crane. And with his particular system, again, uses blank boxes to start. Combination of numbers, letters, and symbols, something that's a little more recognizable than Chadwick's system if you're an experienced scorer. He doesn't necessarily have instructions, but rather a play-by-play breakdown of what's happening. I just kind of loved that I found something 19th century baseball in England. This next scorebook comes from around 1900, according to the Hall of Fame. Hall of Fame was I'm grateful for them to provide me the images from this book and the next couple as well. You can even see the guy who sent me the pictures thumb in these two pictures. This particular one is a Reach's official scorebook. The system contained in this scorebook was created by Harry Wright. Again, his is a blank box system. On the left-hand side, you can get an idea of some of his instructions using numbering players by position, lines for various hits and some numbers and letters. And with this and some of the other ones I got from the Hall of Fame, the images are not fully in focus. So even if I could make it bigger, it'd be hard to see. But with this particular scorebook layout, I was kind of interested in how there were so many different spots for pieces of information I hadn't seen on other ones. There's just like a lot of different places to track information. This next one is a Spalding official baseball scorebook from 1904. And you'll see it in a little bit, but this is not the only scorecard or scorebook attributed to Spalding. But in this particular book, and the system is created by Jacob Charles Morse. Instruction page, unfortunately, was fully text-based, so not much to look at, but you can see that with this particular scorecard, the at-bat boxes are broken up into quarters. So definitely a different look than a lot of the ones that I've come across. This is from 1907. William Reed and Sons baseball scorebook, the system created by Frank W. Johnson. With his system, this is an example card that was included. Some things are recognizable, but with this particular card, it was more unique in the at-bat box being a square in the center with the corners breaking up the sides. Definitely only one I've seen of that so far. And this last system comes from Touching Second, The Science of Baseball, published in 1910 by John Evers and Hugh Fullerton. The latter, the one creating the system. And John Evers is Evers to Tinker to Chance, and all three of those men are also on the scorecard. Okay, where did there we go. And this scorecard, while the system is still Hugh Fullerton's, the scorecard is that other Spalding scorecard that I've come across. Towards the bottom, it actually has a little note saying, entered according to Act of Congress in the year 1877 by A.G. Spalding in Bros. So different than the one that was in quarters, but still Spalding. And with Fullerton's system, the book itself also has some water damage. So it's kind of hard to read some things, but even zoomed in, he packs so much information into each of those little boxes that it's hard to make out. And he uses combination of letters, numbers, and lines in different shapes and directions, and just packs a lot in there. But he does claim in his writing that it is a simple system. And of course, these aren't all of them. There are definitely going to be more systems out there that I haven't come across, different scorebooks possibly. I would say I've mostly been focusing pre-1920s in this aspect. I would say specifically where I'm lacking and hoping to find more is Black writers. So many of these white writers had their own systems. I would hope and I would assume that Black writers and those that covered the Negro Leagues also created their own scoring systems. Because Chadwick definitely lost the battle when it comes to variation. So with the past, there's still been so many different books over the years to going to where we are today. These are some of the other ones that are available today. The first three, Bob Carpenter's The Square Scorebook and the Half-Liner, being layouts that only provide space for 9 batters in a lineup, so a more traditional lineup. And Rawlings and C.S. Peterson being books that can be adapted to rec leagues and softball, having space for more batters in the lineup. Growing up, I actually learned with the C.S. Peterson Score Master. And the motivation for me to make my own was because I liked that scoring box, but I only wanted 9 batters. And so that's where I got my first design. And this one here is a what I call my press box design that mostly refers to the reference pieces of information at the bottom that can be easily looked at if you're in the press box or on a broadcast. As for the scoring itself, the at-bat box contains a diamond field. It can be used to track the runner visually, maybe even show hit direction as I do. It also has a place for balls and strikes and the notations down the side that can be marked off on how a runner reaches base. And like I said, this is just my preferred. It's the one I kind of do best with, but it's not the only one. And I still have others, and just give you an idea of what these can look like. This is the 6x9 pocketbook design. And in this particular layout, the at-bat boxes are an offset diamond with a place for balls and strikes. This one comes from my one-page design, an 8.5x11 layout with at-bat box that is a offset diamond. And this is what I've called my vintage. When I started my research, it came across that Spalding scorebook and various systems that used it, and I kind of decided to play around with it. I used the dotted diamond so that you can visually track the runner, but with each of the corners, it kind of represents that base path and can be used to like track the runner that way. And with this and all the other ones, I include instructions, but for me, they're just starting points, and I actually end the instructions of saying, this is just one way, do whatever works for you best. And I kind of live by that, and you'll see it in a second, more of that. But I do provide that starting point to get people either a refresher or just newbies knowing how they can use a particular scorebook or scorecard. And just for fun, I threw in this blank box layout that I did design for Joe Posnanski's blog. Use some inspiration from the mid-20th century ballpark scorecards, but a lot less ad space than those used to have. And so when I started my research, and you could see in my last presentation, when I started, it was more focused on the art and the scoring systems, but these kind of concepts kept coming up throughout the research that I shifted and kind of found a new focus. As I said, when I wrote my first instruction page, I said, this is just a starting point, do it your way. And then I started finding that concept in my research. And going to that 1891 British baseball guide, the author wrote, quote, in making entries in his scorebook, each individual scorer will doubtless employ terms of his own invention and will find a system of mnemonics and word abbreviations which will serve his purpose, however unintelligible they may be to others. So clearly, Chadwick lost that variation argument of his. And then in 1904, in a How to Keep a Baseball Score article, the author brings the same idea over multiple times. He talks that if anyone familiar with the game could be able to use a system after a half-hour study followed by a little practice, and talks about scorers varying these systems to suit their individual uses, that with experience, scorers will invent signs of their own, and that once basics are mastered, quote, the beginner is in a position to make what experiments he pleases. And while not as early, in 1948, Joe DiMaggio put out a book titled Baseball for Everyone, a treasure of baseball lore and instruction for fans and players. And the last chapter is titled How to Score. However, it is written by Red Barber, not Joe DiMaggio. And he brings this same idea up a few times, saying, quote, my advice to any fan who wants to keep score is to start with a simple elementary system and then add his own embellishments as he goes along. You can grow more meticulous as you become more experienced. And I can say that that's definitely what I've done, especially since I started researching. I just kind of tweak, as even within a game, I'm tweaking what I'm doing. He also wrote, quote, the only important thing about keeping score is that the scorer himself must be able to read his scorecard back a week or a year later. If it is intelligible to him, it doesn't matter what system he employs. And the way I've started to describe it is that keeping score is a language and everyone just has their own dialect. And as long as you can know what it says, that's all that matters, doing it your way, whatever makes sense to you. Doesn't matter if somebody else can read it or not. And then one last from Red Barber kind of brings me to this next aspect where he wrote, I doubt if there are any two people, fans, writers, or broadcasters who keep score with identical symbols and systems. I do know that any fan who acquires the habit of scoring his own ball games will find that it adds much to his enjoyment of the pastime. So he again repeats that everybody's different, but with that, you can enjoy the game more. And this was the other thing that kept popping up in my research. In a 1914 article titled The Pleasure and Profit of Keeping Score, the author talks about this multiple times, including this idea that the best way to learn baseball is through keeping score and that it can increase your knowledge of the game. It also says that if you learn to keep score, quote, they will find baseball a more fascinating sport than they ever dreamed. And that if they got into the habit after a while, quote, it would be almost impossible to watch the play without following it through on the scorecard. And for me, this is kind of where my direction has headed with both the research and my business, is bringing keeping score back to the ballpark culture. I can say from the various ballparks I've been to, it's not as prevalent as it once was. A lot of ballparks don't even have people selling scorecards on the concourse. So you have, and when I want to just grow the game, you have all these people coming to their first game and not knowing that it's an option. I get these comments about, I didn't know you could keep score. But on the other end, I get people who said, I haven't done that in forever. And for me, it's this need to bring keeping score back to the ballpark because so many people are walking in and not even seeing the option of buying a scorecard. And in that moment, learning the game, enjoying the game more, and, it just having more fun when going to the ballpark. When I go back to that 1904 article, How to Keep a Baseball Score, the author wrote, for a true lover of the national game, the system is worth knowing, if only for the glorious memories it has the power to arouse. And I can definitely say that I remember the games I score better than the games I haven't. And going back to Thomas Boswell, he wrote, why you keep score, what trends and keys you study, and when you decide to make special notes, are what makes the difference between a doodler and a seer. That is one who really sees. And from, the idea you have doing it whatever way you want, enjoying the game, learning the game, you're going to get addicted. Before my time, as Paul Dixon wrote in his book, The Joy of Keeping Score, the Orioles used to print on their scorecards, warning, be careful, scoring a ball game can be habit forming. Proceed at your own risk. And Warren Philly said it, put it simply, if you really want to enjoy the game and understand it, you've got to score it. And that's just kind of what I want people to do. And this is my contact information if you want to, get that. And if you did see my last presentation, one of the things I do is I make friendship bracelets for every order. And so I had a lot of fun doing the same thing this time where every slide had a Taylor Swift reference or two. Thank you.
Liz, you have one question in the
Okay. So in terms of the vertical score sheet, that 1-page design and the standard books are all 8.5 by 11 letter size.
You guys have more questions for Liz? Either raise your hand or put in the chat.
I have a couple, Peter.
Go ahead, Tim.
Well, first of all, that was great. I know nothing about that. I played a lot of ball, but I guess I don't know the game that well because I never scored and I coached. But anyhow, that was fascinating. How is does the MLB require any standard kind of scorecarding? I know you just said each person has their own, but does MLB prefer particular
and
time?
not so in terms of the official score keeping score, they can do it themselves, but they have a standard like final scorecard and final totals that gets faxed to MLB. That was actually one of the jobs I got to do when I was a base runner, was I faxed the official scorer's scorecard to MLB's headquarters.
And has the number of pitchers, the increase of number of pitches a game, has that complicated your scoring at all?
It can. I try to, with my designs, get at least 8 pitching slots on every card, because I would say that you're never really seeing games with less than 5 pitchers these days.
Uh,
Brian wrote, in the scorecards with the square in the middle and divided into quadrants, what is put in the corners? I'm not entirely sure with the older books. The way that I did the like vintage book, I consider each corner the base path, so you can like kind of mark how that person reached that or advanced on that particular base path. For the older ones, things were not clear. Plus, the Hall of Fame images were not fully in focus, so it was kind of hard to read some of it as well.
I got a question.
Okay.
Of all the score sheets I ever saw, are there any color coordinated ones where you use different colors to focus on certain plays or parts of the game?
That it depends on the score. I do use multiple colors. I use blue for ball trajectory, so I'll draw lines of what direction the ball went, and I'll try and do different kind of line shapes depending on if it was like a line drive or a fly. And then I use red to indicate like player changes, and so pitching changes where those happened and batting changes, but not everybody does. I know people who use even more colors. But for me, I use 3: black, red, and blue. Steven has his hands up.
Yeah, 2 things. First, thank you for mentioning the difference in the culture at the stadium. I remember when I went to games in the 1970s that people actively kept score. They stayed in their seat for the whole game and actually watched the game. And now it seems more of a social event that people have their back turned to the game. They're at the merchandise area, online for food. It just seems to be a different cultural experience. And my question is, when you showed some of those score sheets with the circle in the middle, is the circle in the middle meant to be left blank where you record the path around the bases in the corners?
It varies. I've seen some that leave it blank, but a lot of the ones that I've come across so far, the square, the diamond in the center was like kind of where they marked hits and or outs and runs to indicate whether or if the runner was left on base. Whereas the corners were kind of more about like how they got on base. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, Liz, you got a couple questions in the chat.
Okay.
I know what's going on.
Yeah, Mike talking about the iPad. That's one of the things that I kind of like didn't like about it. I offer PDF downloads on my site, so like you could use a tablet, but it's really hard to see in the sun. I would say I definitely prefer the paper one, especially just kind of helps me slow down. I'm very ADHD, and keeping score does more to keep my attention than anything else. Jesse?
Hey Liz, really appreciate the presentation. Thought you did a great job. I was looking at the website. Stuff looks great. Definitely interested in that. I just wanted to say I'm coaching 11-year-olds, so it definitely can be useful to have 12 to 15 slots in the lineup sometimes. So I thought it was funny that you were kind of anti that, but I can also definitely understand kind of wanting a cleaner score sheet for scoring professional games when you're not going to have more than 9 people in the lineup. In terms of a question, I guess I would just say if you're someone who's been scoring for a while and it's something that you're kind of passionate about, are there any like favorite games that you've scored and like, I don't know, maybe saved the scorecard and kept it as a memento or something?
I'm a little bit of a hoarder, so I haven't really thrown out anything. I still have my scorebook. It was the C.S. Peterson one when I was an intern, and I got to keep score in the press box for the first time. But I would say last year I actually had a great one where through my research, I started like doing different things, and I decided, okay, I'm going to start tracking 0-2 counts and whether the first pitch is a ball or a strike. And so the very first game I decided to do this, I looked down at the end of the top half of the inning, and I'm saying 1-2, 1-2K, 1-2K, 1-2K. And I look at my mom and I'm like, were there any 2-strike fouls? And she's like, no. And I'm sitting there going, oh, so that was an immaculate inning. And it was kind of one of these like wonderful moments because I had never done that aspect of keeping score before that. But I watched this guy in his 5th career start throw an immaculate inning against the Mets. And it was exciting. And then everybody around me learned what an immaculate inning was.
That's awesome.
Jeff?
Yeah, my screen might be different than everybody else. I'm still seeing the screen share, and I put some questions in the chat that I don't think you're seeing.
I can see it. I shared that particular window, so you guys don't see anything else that's on it.
Okay. Well, in the chat, I noticed the players, the position numbers were different in one of the old ones. The shortstop and third baseman, and then the outfielder was reversed.
There's actually some articles that talk about that being varied between systems, but it was generally the same. It was either 5 is shortstop and 6 is third base, and then left field and right fielder switched. But in general, it's kind of homogenized to the left field is 7, right field is 9, and short.
That's the way I always knew it. Yeah.
But again, like I said, even Chadwick's system he numbered them by their batting order. So at least we don't have that anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I thought something was going wrong with my screen.
Anybody else, guys? Questions? Comments? 3 weeks from tomorrow is opening day.
Thomas, yeah.
Anybody going opening day?
Yeah.
I got one question.
Yeah, I'm going.
Yeah.
This is Tom. Back in the 90s, I kept score and went to games. And I did it for about 7 or 8 years. Then what I found is I couldn't do multitask. I mean, keeping score and carrying on conversations with the friends I went with the game to the game. So it became either I can do one or the other, but I can't do both. Do people who keep score have that problem?
I do from time to time. I'm usually at games with my mom. Hi, Mom, because she's in here in the other room. But so for her and we actually have those conversations while keeping score. But I'm also very ADD, so I can talk. But there's been times where I'm in a conversation with somebody that I like ran into, and I just go, okay, I can't do this anymore. And I put it away. But I would say if you're keeping score with other people, it makes it easier almost to have a conversation. It's almost like when you're in the broadcast booth and the 2 guys have to stop for every play. Have I thought about considering columns for fielding statistics? I have at times, but in terms of the way that I have a lot of mine laid out right now, there's not necessarily the space for it. There's note sections on most of them, you like total complete ones, but yeah, for me at this point, unless I can figure out, especially with printing books, using larger paper, it's not something I can fit in quite yet.
Good job, guys. Got a lot of comments, questions.
Thank you.
We had a nice showing. I'm impressed. I know we're all bored, and aside from spring training, we won't have anything really to do right now. But
I've been working at the new job started last week. So
where are you now, Liz?
So I work remote for MLB.
Oh, MLB, yeah.
Yeah, and so I I've been monitoring spring training games, either the TV, radio, depending on what's actually being broadcasted, and just making sure it's working.
Excellent. Well, I'll be at Camden Yards on the 26th against the Twins. Of course, there's the World Baseball Classic. Thank you, Brian, for reminding us. That'll satisfy our hunger for a few weeks. So appreciate everybody coming out tonight.
It looks like Stephen raised his hand.
Steve, you got something?
Yes, thank you. Since you're writing a lot in a small box, are there any kind of pens or pencils that are easier to work with?
So I use friction erasable pens, and I tend to stick to the ultra fine tip ones so that I can, because I also have messy handwriting, and it's the other reason I like the layout that I do is because I can just like circle how they reach base and not take up that space. But I use extra fine pens and it works pretty well. I have considered larger format books. I've actually have dabbled around with a low vision scorebook. Kind of the only thing holding me back is I can't necessarily afford to get them printed, but they also are hard to get printed since they are gonna have to be on like much larger paper. I've definitely looked at larger paper, but for me right now, it's kind of tough in terms of printing them.
Got a nice thumbs up. All right. Well, great job, everybody. I'm impressed. Hopefully Liz is. Bill, thanks for the hand clap. So see you guys in a couple weeks. If you have any questions, you know how to reach out to me or any of the other officers here at the BBRC. Yeah, we're almost there. Now it's going to be up into the high 50s and 60s this weekend, so we're finally getting that taste of spring.
Finally, I was born March 13th in the middle of a blizzard, so I'm okay with 70-degree weather for my birthday.
I don't want too much too fast, but a slight warm up is fine with me.
Yeah.
So I am going up to see my mom this weekend in the Scranton area, so I'm sure it'll be much colder up there. So appreciate your guys' time. If there's nothing else,
Thanks, guys.
We'll call it an evening. See you guys all soon. So thanks for your participation, and thank you, Liz, for a very interesting topic. I'm not good at scorekeeping, but this has enthused me to try it again.
There's no wrong way to keep score. That's kind of
like there's no wrong way to eat a Reese's peanut butter cup. So so we'll leave it at that. All right, guys. Well, have a good night.
Thank you.
And be in touch soon. Have a great week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.